Buddies. So today we're going to be talking about tips that I have for beginners when you are just starting your plant journey, and for any of us who just want some basic tips for succulent care. Okay guys, so join me. Tip number 1. The first thing to do when buying a plant is to make sure that you buy a healthy one. Make sure that the top is healthy. Check the stems for any signs of rot or any dark spots that may indicate rot, and make sure that the leaves of your succulents is healthy. Look for anything that don't buy anything that's like mushy or looks overwatered, and any rotting leaves. You don't want to choose a succulent like that. Just make sure that the overall health of the plant that you choose is good. Little babies on the side, that's also a big bonus when buying a new succulent. Okay, so tip number 1, buy a healthy plant. Tip number 2, make sure that you have the proper soil mix. Wherever it is that you live, make sure you research what is the proper soil mix for your succulents, because it can differ on the areas where you live. For me, I live in a very hot and humid tropical climate, so this is a soil mix that works for me. My ratio of my soil mix is 1:1:1. This is just a regular potting mix. Any brand will do. Whatever brand it is that you prefer for potting mix, you can mix it into your soil. This right here is just perlite. You could also substitute this with pumice or turfus, whatever you have available in your area. The reason why I use perlite is because it is a lot easier to source for me in hardware stores where I live. It's all over the place. My third mix right here is called a sunshine mix. It's a mix of different things. It's a peat-based soil mix, so it's very light, and then it also comes with a lot of perlite in there, and then there's some bark. It just makes for a lighter soil mix for me. You could use whatever brand you like. Anything works. Just make sure that your soil mix is very gritty and well draining. Okay? Tip number 3. Pots that you will be using, guys. Okay, so whatever pot it is that you decide to use for your succulent, whether it be a plastic pot, terracotta, or a nicer ceramic pot, the most important is for them to have a drainage hole. The biggest mistake that newbies make is overwatering their succulents, and if you do not have a drainage hole in the bottom of your pots, there is a likeliness of overwatering and then the water just sitting at the bottom and the soil staying wet for too long, and of course that is a recipe for rot. For beginners, I do highly recommend using terracotta pots because they very much help aid in drainage, because terracotta is very porous, so it wicks up any extra moisture in the soil, therefore letting your soil dry out faster than it would in plastic or ceramic pots. Okay guys, it is not necessary to have a drainage hole for succulents to grow in pots, but it lessens the chances of beginners or even me over watering, because unless you have really good control and you know exactly how much water your succulent needs when it does not have a drainage hole, the chances of overwatering is very big. A lot of pots, like the nice ones like this, the ceramic, do not come with drainage holes. So look what I did. I broke the bottom and made a hole. It may not look very nice, but it's gonna be like that until I get a diamond drill bit to make holes in my pots. Doesn't look very nice, but once the succulents are in there, you know, you're not going to be lifting up my pot saying, oh, that looks ugly. It's not going to matter. The best thing to do is make sure you have a drainage hole. Okay, guys? Tip number 4. When you have a newly repotted succulent, make sure that you do not water right away. I usually wait at least 4 to 7 days until the first watering, depending on how thirsty my plant is, because after repotting, there is a chance that you may have damaged those roots when replacing the soil. So you want to give those roots time to heal before introducing any type of moisture to the soil to avoid rotting. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen, and it is a lot better to be on the safe side, okay? When the leaves look like this in the bottom, after 3 to 4 days, it's time for the first watering. We have our video number 17 for watering care tips after repotting. If you guys want to take a look at that, I go more into detail of why you shouldn't water right away and the proper way of watering for the first time after repotting. Tip number 5, guys, is proper sun exposure. In order for our succulents to stay healthy, grow nice and compact, we need to give them a lot of sun. It takes at least 6 to 8 hours of sun to get this look for my little arrangement right here. For comparison, this is a Graptopetalum paraguayans pinky. She has been exposed to full sun for 6 to 8 hours a day for a little over 6 months now. And if you notice, you know, she has like the nice colors on her. She's very compact, as well as the other plants in this pot. Now, for the same succulent right here, this one right here is also a Graptopetalum paraguayans pinky, the same as this succulent right here, but this one has been left in bright shade where it does not get direct sunlight, and look how poorly it has grown. The leaves have turned down because it's trying to absorb more sunlight, and then if you can see the stem right there, you see how stretched it's become. There's so much space in between. The succulent is not compact. This is what happens when our succulents don't get enough sunlight. This is mostly when succulents are set by a window that doesn't get enough sun throughout the day. The more sun you can give your succulents, the better they will do. And make sure also to gradually introduce them, starting with 2 hours of morning sun, and then after that, kind of increase the time that they have in the sunlight. If it's too hot, especially in the summer, make sure to give filtered sunlight in the afternoon to prevent sunburn. All right, guys? Another example is when you give your succulents enough sunlight. When you give your succulents enough sunlight, you will get the beautiful stress colors like this succulent that I have here. If left in just bright shade, or if you only give it about 2 to 3 hours of sun a day, your succulent will pretty much just be green. But to get the beautiful stress colors like the pinks and the yellows in there, they will need at least 6 to 8 of sunlight a day, or at least be grown under grower lights. Okay, guys? Tip number 6 is you want to provide your succulents some type of shade when it is too hot, especially right now in the summertime. The heat can get really intense. Anytime the temperature goes above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, guys, I put a shade cloth over the top of my succulents. I just make some kind of structure so that it's hanging over the top like this. And as you can see, the succulent will be under there. It'll be a lot cooler, but some of this, the sunlight can still get through, so that, they don't lose their tight, compact look. for my area, it's actually pretty hard to find a good price shade cloth. So since I do not need my shade cloth up the whole year, I just use simple burlap that you can buy at any hardware store or Home Depot. I bought a whole roll of this for about $11 and it works great. Tip number 7, guys, overwatering our succulents. This is probably the biggest mistake that newbies make. We overlove our succulents and give them way too much water. For watering tips and knowing when to water your succulents by understanding the conditions of their leaves, please watch episode number 10. I go into detail and explain the differences in the conditions of the succulent leaves, so you know exactly when to water and when not to water your succulents. I use most of my succulents are in pots, okay? So I use something like this. This is just a regular condiment bottle. I put water in there. This way I can control how much water I give and direct it where I want it to go, because I don't like it when the top of my rosettes get water stuck kind of in between the leaves. Okay, guys? So that is tip number 7. Make sure you do not overwater and learn the proper ways of watering. Tip number 8. Make sure that once in a while, at least maybe every 2 weeks when you have time, guys, make sure to groom your succulents. Look for any leaves underneath your succulents that have dried off and take them out and clean your succulents. The reason why is because when you have these leaves accumulate under your succulents, these can actually harbor pests. You know, they can make a home in there because of those dead leaves that accumulate. And then also when you water, water can get stuck in between, and this could actually cause succulent rot because it reduces the airflow underneath, and you want to avoid rot as much as possible. Plus, you know, after cleanup, your succulents just pretty much look a lot nicer when there's no dried leaves under there. Tip number 9. Protect your succulents from pests. Once in a while, we will get mealybugs or aphids, or ants just like to be around our succulents. So the way to control that is, say when you have mealybugs or aphids, if you want to get rid of them right away, the fastest way to do it is to have isopropyl alcohol. All you have to do is spot treat and spray the mealybug or aphids, spray it right on there, and it should kill them. When you do this though, when you spray anything on your plants, make sure that for the next 3 days you place your plant in indirect sunlight to prevent the rosette and the leaves from burning. For ants, I use diatomaceous earth that I just put in any empty like seasoning bottle over here, and then whenever there's ants around, I just kind of sprinkle it all over the top of the soil of my succulents and then around the area. It makes the ants go away in minutes. Tip number 10, guys, is do not hesitate to ask for help. There are so many resources on the internet that you can look up, you know, to help you take care of your succulents when you're not exactly sure what you're doing. My videos are targeted towards beginners who may want to learn certain tips and certain, you know, ways to do things like propagating and care tips for succulents. And then we also have a These Succulent Buddies group that you can join, where I can answer more questions that I may not have been able to cover in any of my videos. A lot of members are also really nice and are more than willing to help. There are other Facebook groups out there like Succulent Madness and what's the other one that Succulent Addicts United. You know, these groups are one of the best groups that I have joined because the admins are so kind and the members are always more than willing to help when you need anything. There are different YouTube channels that help us. You know, aside from mine, there are so many YouTube channels that have videos available to help you with any questions that you may have. You know, just like, okay, when a succulent is rotting and they tell you, okay, just chop it off, what do you do next, right? You're a beginner, you don't know what to do. After I chop it off, what do I do? I have a video that will give you care tips of how to chop it off, exactly what to do, and then care tips afterwards for something like this, an Echeveria Lola that started rotting. There are so many resources out there, guys. Just do not hesitate to ask for help. And for our very last tip, my succulent buddies, do not get discouraged, okay? Don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. In my first year of growing succulents, believe me, I was so excited. I bought a whole bunch of succulents, and in the first 6 months, because I didn't really know what I was doing, I killed half of my collection. But I did not lose hope. I kept asking questions, I kept researching, I kept learning. And the longer you do this, the more mistakes you make. I promise, the more you will learn and the less succulents you will kill. You know, years down the line now, the most I will probably lose is 1 succulent or 2 every year in the middle of the summer, and I actually don't necessarily lose them. All of us will have some type of problem in the future, such as succulent rot, like with my Echeveria Lola over here. This almost died on me, but because I learned from my mistakes in the past and I knew what to look for, I knew when it was rotting and when it was time to cut so I can save it so she can have a second life. Okay? Do not forget, guys, this is a learning journey. Succulents are easy when we learn how to take care of them properly. So please do not lose hope. Do not get discouraged. Let's keep growing. And I hope this video helped you guys. This is Christine from These Succulent Buddies. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.